no dream. This is really happening.
Today we're taking a look at Rosemary's Baby by Roman Polanski. Just like The Shining, Rosemary's Baby is a magnet for conspiracy theories. It's quite ironic really, when you consider that the movie is about conspiracies and shady occult practices itself. It shouldn't come to a surprise that people would look for hidden meaning and subtext in a film that is so complex. Numerous books can be written, and have been written, about this great piece of cinema. But let's start from the beginning, let's take a look at the plot. When Rosemary, played by Mia Farrow, and her husband Guy, played by director John Cassavetes, move into a nice big and possibly evil apartment building, they quickly befriend the Castavets, an old, nosy and hopefully not evil couple that lives next door. Life seems to go swell for Rosemary, but the Castavets seem to interfere more and more in her life. They pay unannounced visits and bring guests over. They ask Rosemary and Guy out for dinner and such.
Listen, Rosemary, I got a 2-inch thick sirloin steak sitting defrosting right this minute. Why don't you and Guy come over and have supper with us tonight? What do you say?
Oh, no, we couldn't.
Why not?
No, really, that's very kind of you.
But the more and more they hang out with the Castavets and their inner circle of high society peers, the more strange things start to occur. Especially with Guy, who is a struggling actor who had to do parts in degrading commercials to get by. Hey, we've all been there. First he's submissive to the Castavets, but then more and more he starts to befriend them, even love them. Right at the time some other actor goes unexpectedly blind.
Woke up yesterday and he can't see.
Oh, no.
Oh, I've got the part. It's a hell of a way to get it.
So he gets a huge part in a big movie and becomes famous.
Coincidence? I think not!
Then on a certain night, Minnie gives Rosemary a homemade chocolate mousse that has a, quote,
chalky undertaste.
Hey, maybe it's the chocolate mousse from that chef on the Muppets.
Mousse, 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 and good, the chocolate on the mousse.
She passes out and has a rather unsettling fever dream where she dreams she's being raped by some beast.
Typhoon! Typhoon! It killed 55 people in London!
When she wakes up, she has claw marks on her, but Guy just says he had sex with her while she was passed out.
I didn't want to miss baby night.
You...
And a couple of
While I
my
was
nails were
out?
ragged, and it was kind of fun in a necrophile sort of way.
Oh, okay, that explains it. For a minute there I thought there was something disturbing going on. So Rosemary's pregnant now. And of course from this point even stranger things start to happen. Her body's aching all the time.
Body's aching all the time.
Yep, okay, that's what I said. She develops weird appetites, has freaky David Lynch dreams, but the doctor, who is a good friend of the hopefully not evil Castavets, keeps reassuring her that everything is normal.
I was afraid it might be an ectopic pregnancy.
Ectopic? I thought you weren't going to read books, Rosemary.
It was staring at me in the drugstore.
And all it did was worry you. Will you go home and throw it away, please?
I will. I
Pains will be
promise.
gone in 2 days.
Meanwhile, the Castavets and their peers seem to invade her life more and more. They are cutting her off from the outside world and seem to try to control her every move.
Nothing but a mild sedative to calm you down.
Rosemary starts to suspect that the Castavets are evil witches, and that they're after her baby to perform horrible rituals with it. So, of course, she starts freaking out. Hey, after seeing the movie The Witch and what they do to babies there, I do not blame her. That about sums up the plot. I won't give the ending away for those of you who haven't seen it yet, but I will say that it certainly leaves a big impression and is a memorable ending to a great horror classic. What makes Rosemary's Baby so scary and disturbing is how much of the horror is only suggested.
No, sit down, please. Now, Mrs. Woodhouse.
The plot may allude to witchcraft, occult and devil worship, but there is never anything supernatural or even occult shown. The movie is told entirely from Rosemary's perspective, or in other words, we know just as much as she does. So most of the occult stuff is only alleged or hinted at. This makes the story very suspenseful and disturbing. The horror comes from the idea that the scariest things imaginable are not what is shown, but rather what is not shown.
The pictures, they took them down. The hook's in the wall and clean spaces, and the one picture that is there doesn't fit.
I didn't notice that.
The idea of being cut off from the outside world, of being controlled and manipulated, is much scarier than a beast or demon in any form. Also, these are fears we can relate to, fears we possibly experienced ourselves.
What are you talking about? What about what's fair to me?
The key to Rosemary's Baby is having a realistic premise. The occult stuff is just a coating, a vehicle for a much more complex and realistic story. Rosemary's ignorance, helplessness and alienation are much more frightening than any idea of occult practices. The movie shows that being alone is not necessarily the scariest thing that could happen. It's having no one you can trust.
I mean it now. Give it to me.
The complex story has been handled perfectly by Polanski, who is a complex storyteller himself. There is a lot of contrasting symbolism. The young innocent couple, the evil elderly couple, the bright new apartment and the dark old apartment, Rosemary's hot young friends, Guy's gross old friends. She feels all alone in a crowded city. The movie is about extremes, about black and white, old and new, good and evil, and of course this is translated beautifully in the cinematography. The interior shots, for example, start out very bright and colorful, with lots of whites. But as the story progresses, the nightmare becomes more and more real. The cinematic tone shifts to much darker. Also, since the story is told from Rosemary's perspective, many of the shots implicate her feelings or relation to certain characters. Sometimes they're cut off by the doorframe, meaning they're hiding their true intentions for her in plain sight. Many people claim Rosemary's Baby is one of the best stories about the occult ever made. Here's why. First off, it is really scary and disturbing, but not in a conventional way. It doesn't rely on monsters or gore or supermodel teenagers. While the occult stuff may satisfy the average horror-loving teenager, the truly horrific aspects of the story speak to an older audience for a change. Second, it is very realistic in its approach. All occult practices are hidden in society's backyard, so they can be found anywhere. Neighbors, family, your cat. Like in real life, the occult stuff is always hidden in plain sight, showing us that the greatest of evils around you greet you with a big smile. So even though the movie alludes to witches and devil worship, the true horror that is displayed is much more relatable and therefore much more scary. Alienation, losing individuality, loss of control, being manipulated by those you trust most, are all things we all have to deal with sooner or later. Just maybe not as extreme. I hope.
So we'll meet again, I'm sure.
Goodbye.